Dear shareholders, my name is Carla Smits-Nusteling and I'm the chairman of the Tele2 Board of Directors. Welcome to the annual general meeting. It is unfortunate that we cannot meet in person, as I hoped, but I'm nonetheless happy to provide this presentation in a safe manner through video. I will begin by providing a summary of the board's work in 2020. During 2020, the board had 17 meetings. Due to the pandemic, only one of them was physical, while we conducted 7 teleconferences and 9 meetings per capsule. In addition to the more ordinary tasks of the board, some of the main topics handled by the board during 2020 were the appointment of a new CEO, the divestment of Tele2 Germany, 5G related matters, and matters related to the pandemic. We have also spent at each meeting time discussing the company's strategy and growth opportunities with different focus areas at each meeting. We have, of course, also spent time on preparing the board's proposals for this general meeting. As you know, the purpose of this meeting is for you to exercise your right as a shareholder to vote on the propositions that myself and the rest of the board have suggested. I will now go through these propositions. We will start with item 8, the dividend proposal. For the financial year 2020, the Board of Directors of Tele2 AB has decided to recommend to the general meeting that an ordinary dividend of 6 SEK to be paid per ordinary A and B share in 2 equal tranches in April and October of this year. The proposed ordinary dividend represents a 9% increase compared to last year. The board is not proposing any extraordinary dividend at this stage, but with continued growth in underlying EBITDA, the board remains committed to maintain a leverage within the communicated target range of 2.5 to 3 times. In the following section, I will briefly cover the board's remuneration report that is subject to approval at this meeting, and our proposal for Tele2's long-term incentive program, LTIP 2021. Now I will present item 15 and provide a summary of the board's remuneration report for approval. The remuneration report itself is available at tele2.com and is included in the annual report for 2020. The report describes how the guidelines for executive remuneration of the company adopted by the AGM 2020 were implemented in 2020. The report also provides information on remuneration to the CEO and a summary of the company's outstanding long-term share and share price related incentive plans. The report has been prepared in accordance with the Swedish Companies Act and the remuneration rules issued by the Swedish Corporate Governance Board. According to the remuneration guidelines, executive remuneration shall be on market terms, and remuneration to the senior executives should comprise annual fixed base salary, variable short-term remuneration, variable long-term incentives, pension benefits, and other benefits. The remuneration guidelines are outlined in detail in the annual report for 2020. During 2020, the remuneration guidelines have been fully implemented. No deviations from the guidelines have been decided and no derogations from the procedure for implementation of the guidelines have been made. The auditor's report regarding the company's compliance with the guidelines is available at the Tele2 webpage. We seek your approval of the remuneration report and propose no changes to the remuneration guidelines for 2021. I would now like to move on to item 16 and our proposal for long-term incentive program 2021. The design of the long-term incentive plan has remained broadly consistent over the past decade. The Remuneration Committee evaluates the plan structure each year to enable a balanced proposal at the AGM. The main elements of the program for 2021 are the same as last year, and the structure has remained broadly consistent over the past decade. The total number of participants are slightly fewer, with 212 compared to 225 last year, and a slight change in suggested number of slots per category is proposed. The number of saving shares are also slightly fewer. However, the number of categories and maximum number of saving shares per category remain the same, as well as the maximum number of shares that can be distributed at full payout. The board proposes an increase to the number of saving shares at the CEO level from 10,000 to 20,000 and proposes an adjustment to the stretch level performance metric for the B rights. Other than that, the proposal for the 2021 LTIP is the same as last year's program, with the same investment requirement, the same vesting period, multipliers, and peer group. This slide summarizes the size of the program compared to last year, and you can see the proposed changes that I just mentioned, with 212 participants, slightly lower total saving shares, and a larger amount of saving shares for the CEO. As previously mentioned, the total size of the program remains the same, with the maximum shares paid out still at 1.8 million shares after 3 years. The IFRS 2 cost at expected delivery levels is calculated at 74 million SEK, plus social costs of 38 million SEK. The expected dilution related to the 2021 plan is 0.32% of the shares currently outstanding. This is roughly the same as the 2020 program. We seek your approval of the LTI 2021 program. To cater for the delivery of shares to the LTI participants at vesting, the board also proposes that the AGM resolves to authorize the board during the period until the AGM 2022 to increase the company's share capital by not more than 2,575,000 SEK by the issue of not more than 2,200,000 Class C shares, each with a ratio value of 1.25 SEK. The board also proposes that the AGM resolves that Class B shares that the company holds may be transferred to the LTI participants in accordance with the approved terms or sold on Nasdaq Stockholm. Should the annual general meeting, for any reason, not approve the proposed right to transfer of own shares to participants in the LTI programs, the board proposes that the company instead may enter into a hedging arrangement with a third party to hedge the obligations of the company to deliver performance shares under the program. But that is not the preferred option for the board, as it usually is more expensive for the company. In terms of the board's other proposals, we seek your approval for an authorization for the board to resolve to repurchase own shares. The purpose of the authorization is both to give the board flexibility to continuously decide on changes to the capital structure during the upcoming year and thereby contribute to increased shareholder value, as well as to hedge delivery of B shares to the participants in Tele2's long-term incentive programs, LTI 2019 to 2021. The board proposes that any repurchase shall be made under the following conditions. The repurchase of Class A and/or Class B shares shall take place on Nasdaq Stockholm in accordance with Nasdaq Stockholm's rules regarding purchase of own shares. The repurchase of Class A and/or Class B shares may take place on one or more occasions for the period up until the next AGM. So many Class A and/or Class B shares may, at the most, be repurchased so that the company's holding does not at any time exceed 10% of the total number of shares in the company. The repurchase of Class A and/or Class B shares at Nasdaq Stockholm may occur at a price within the share price interval registered at that time, where share price interval means the difference between the highest buying price and lowest selling price. It's the from time to time lowest priced available shares that shall be repurchased by the company. Payment for the shares shall be made in cash. I would like to thank you for watching this presentation. I'm excited about Tele2's future and the journey ahead. The board and I sincerely hope we get to meet in person next year. But until then, thank you and stay safe.